Good afternoon and welcome to our Math Mindsets webinar to chat growth mindset in math education. I'm Clara Galan. I'm the Community Engagement Manager here at Amazon Education, and I'm a former middle school teacher. And I'm really excited to be joined here this afternoon by Kelly Mendoza from Common Sense Media, Dave Hanescu from PERTS, and Leah Orellana from Berkeley High School to share their expertise and resources that you can implement in your school or classroom. So we're really excited to have you today. Can each of you share a little bit about your background and each of your organizations?
Sure, I'll get started. My name is Kelly Mendoza, and I'm with Common Sense Education. And Common Sense is a nonprofit organization, and we're focused on providing families and parents and teachers in schools the information they need to help kids thrive in a world of media and technology. So excited to be here and partnering on the With Math I Can campaign. And a little bit about my background. I'm Director of Professional Development, and that means also creating a lot of content. We know that teachers are going online, like right now, for professional learning and growth, and providing opportunities around really using technology meaningfully and enhancing their teaching with technology. So that's our focus, and a little bit before that I've been focused on media literacy, and so I've always had that interest in the intersections between technology and teaching. So thanks for having me.
Okay, I think I'm up next. My name is Dave Hanescu, and I'm the co-founder and executive director of PERTS, which is an applied research center at Stanford University. At PERTS, we believe that new research on learning can have a really transformative effect on education, and that it can empower educators to help their students thrive. But far too often, there's a big gap between what researchers know and what educators can do to put that research into practice. So at PERTS, we work to close that gap. We partner with researchers and with organizations to develop and to disseminate evidence-based resources that empower our educators to apply the latest research in their own classrooms.
And hi, I'm Leah Orellana. I am a math teacher at Berkeley High. I've been teaching for 15 years now, and I started my career in high school, and I went back to middle school because I was so worried that kids had already developed, I didn't have the language then, but a fixed mindset about learning. And I felt like high school was too late, so I went back and taught middle school for over a decade. Now I'm back in high school as I've learned to help kids change their mindset and learn math. I have 3 different videos on the teaching channel that maybe we'll have a chance to share later, all dealing with how students can improve their learning of math and how we as teachers can help them do that.
So thank you again all so much for joining us. I'm really looking forward to learning from all of your expertise. So for those of you who are just tuning in, make sure to tweet your questions live with the hashtag #WithMathICan, and we'll do our best to answer them from our social media channels and at Amazon EDU on Twitter. You can also post your questions on the page of the Google Hangout on Air, and we'll be sure to get to those following the webinar. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's review the basics and research behind growth mindset. So what is a growth mindset and how does it differ from a fixed mindset? Dave, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
All right, great. All right, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. I'm just making sure. Okay, so first, a growth mindset is to believe that individuals can develop their abilities. And it's contrasted with a fixed mindset, or the belief that people's abilities are more or less stable. When people think with a fixed mindset, they think either you're smart or you're not, that either you're talented or you're not, that either you're a math person or you're not. In contrast, when people think with a growth mindset, they understand that their abilities can improve substantially if they use the right strategies and if they work hard. Now, research on students' mindsets about intelligence has shown that the way they think about intelligence can really have a big impact on their academic motivation and on their success. When students have a growth mindset about intelligence, school can really be an exciting place because it provides them with an opportunity to learn and to grow. Students who have a growth mindset tend to value learning over looking smart, to see effort as a way to improve their abilities, and to embrace challenges and stay resilient in the face of setbacks. Because to them, those setbacks are just temporary, and they're stepping stones to further improvement. In general, these students, maybe unsurprisingly in light of the way they respond to different kinds of challenges, tend to do better in school over time. In contrast, students with a fixed mindset see school as a much more judgmental place. They tend to value looking smart over learning, to view effort as a sign that they're not smart, because they think that you wouldn't have to work hard if you were a natural. So students with a fixed mindset tend to shy away from challenging schoolwork and to give up in the face of setbacks, because they interpret setbacks as a sign that they don't have what it takes to succeed. Unsurprisingly, then, they tend to show lower engagement and achievement in school over time. So I just wanted to show you a quick study, quickly show you a study that we recently conducted to give you an example of how powerful the relationship between mindsets and achievement can be. Mindset survey questions were built into the Chilean National Achievement Test for 10th graders. So our sample in this study was nearly all the 10th graders in the entire nation of Chile, like well over 100,000 of them. And what we found was that students who had a fixed mindset were more than 4 times more likely than those with a growth mindset to score in the bottom 20% of students nationally. In contrast, students who had a growth mindset were around 3 times more likely to score in the top 20% than those with a fixed mindset. Now, importantly, this relationship was really robust. At every level of family income, students who had a growth mindset outperformed students from the same background who had a fixed mindset. And in fact, across all schools in the country, there was an extremely reliable pattern such that students with a growth mindset outperformed those who had a fixed mindset. Now, results like these invite a question. Can we help more students develop a growth mindset? And the answer is a resounding yes. So research by PERTS and by multiple other research labs has shown that it is possible to help students develop a growth mindset. For example, we have developed and evaluated online modules that teach students about neural plasticity and how the things they do can actually rewire their brains. We explain to students that the efforts they put into learning and practicing using effective study strategies can help them become smarter and more successful students. This knowledge can really have a transformative effect on students who might be accustomed to thinking that they're stuck at whatever level of ability they currently have. In one of our randomized controlled studies, students who were at risk for dropping out of high school brought up their grades substantially in the semester following being randomly assigned to this growth mindset intervention. And this work has been recently replicated in an even larger study, and we're testing it again with an even larger nationally representative sample. So just to sum up, growth mindset is the belief that your abilities can be developed, and there's a lot of research showing that there are a variety of positive behavioral and academic outcomes associated with this belief, which furthermore is something that can be developed both through interventions and through classroom practices.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dave. And I know that PERTS has so many great resources. And if you go, those who are tuning in, make sure to visit perts.net so you can access the research and the background for growth mindset. And you can also visit with mathican.org to access many more of PERTS resources. So moving on to Leah, in your opinion as a classroom teacher, why is growth mindset important, and how do you see it specifically amongst your students in your math classroom?
I think it's a game changer. I think it allows me to take my students and tell them whatever level you are at currently in your math understanding, it can be improved, and it is through your effort and your hard work and your willingness to try new things that the learning will happen. One of my favorite quotes is that I've never met a kid who doesn't like to learn, but I've met plenty who don't like school. And so as much as I can make school about learning, I can bring in a lot of kids, but they have to know that the learning happens while they're making mistakes. So I do a lot in my class to normalize the mistake-making process and kind of work through it. When our warm-ups, we go over mistakes that students are making instead of the right answer, and develop how you can turn a mistake into the correct answer. I spend a lot of time teaching kids that not doing a problem is not the same as making a mistake. You actually have to try and engage, and then once you've made a mistake, I can take you from there. I also, when I hand back tests, I don't put grades on them. I only give students feedback and then allow them to retake it. So they take a test, find out what they're doing wrong, fix those mistakes, come back and retake the test, which makes the process of learning never ending and really hopeful to a lot of my students. I'm going to share some slides with you just of the 3 videos I have up on the teaching channel right now. One is on the way I grade tests, one is on how I do my warm-up routine, and then a third one is what I call concept first, notation last, that I like students to learn ideas before I teach them vocabulary and notation, which allows them to have a real big conceptual understanding, because learning math is not about memorizing, which I think is true for most subjects. It's about understanding. So I'm going to share these 3 videos with you, and then I suppose we will put it on the other website later. So hold on one moment. Here. So that's me and my Twitter handle, @MissAlcala. And then here you can see my, my favorite No Learning from Mistakes. It's on the teaching channel. This one right here is highlighting mistakes, a grading strategy. That's how I return tests to students. And then lastly, concept first, notation last. And I have the direct links here for you guys. But just to sum up, I think it is really critical that students know in all of our classes that questions are really important, mistakes are how you learn and grow your brain, and that when they're in my class, it's all about learning and not performing. They're not doing a performance for me, they're wrestling with really tricky information, asking questions, and trying to make sense of it.
So Leah, as a quick follow-up question, I know we had originally spotted some of the videos, and I'm so glad that you shared those with those who are tuning in. But I hear a lot of common misconceptions around growth mindset, and that it's only to encourage students to work harder. Can you address that, misconception a little bit, and what else is really required to really cultivate a growth mindset in the math classroom?
Yeah, I think it's really important that you can't just teach kids that there is this thing called a growth mindset, and they say, okay, I'll have a growth mindset, and then all of a sudden I'll start learning. That there is effort that needs to be put into it, and carefully designed lessons that allow students to ask questions and fail and come out on the other side. So you want to make sure that you're both teaching how the content works, how to ask questions, how to learn from your mistakes. It's not just about making mistakes, because although your brain does grow, according to Joe Bowler, when you make mistakes, whether or not you notice that you're making mistakes, but it grows even more if you notice that you're making that mistake. So to make that explicit in your classroom can really help students take off, and is why I'm able to be back in high school now, because as I teach kids how to obtain a growth mindset, I'm able to turn people who thought they weren't math people into people who realize that they can learn anything.
Thank you so much for addressing that, Leah, and thank you again for sharing those resources. For those of you who are tuning in, we will make sure to share those wonderful teaching channel videos with you on Twitter following the webinar with the hashtag #WithMathICan. We'll also be tweeting it out from the @Amazon.edu channel and posting it to this Google Plus Hangout page. So in addition to some of those resources, Common Sense Education and Graphite also have some really helpful resources and lesson plans for teaching and cultivating a growth mindset in the classroom. And you can access some of these at graphite.org. and they're also featured on withmathican.org. So Kelly, speaking of a growth mindset in the math classroom, can you share a little bit more about the connections between growth mindset, math, and technology integration?
Sure. And I also want to confirm that if I show PowerPoint slides, they'll come up if I go into presentation mode. Okay. So let me do that. So a little bit about Common Sense. I mentioned we're a nonprofit organization. Our home office is here in San Francisco, but we actually have offices around the country. And one way to think about growth mindset, we're talking about it with education, but it's interesting because we're seeing parents grasp onto the concept too for their kids. And we offer both resources for both audiences, parents and educators, around media and technology. So let me pull the thread, and I'll get you to the technology piece, but just share a little bit about what we're thinking about it. So let me share here. You should be seeing my little slides there, and then if I present, it's going to go full screen. Okay. So let me do that. Okay. So, some of this has been echoed already, but, why growth mindset and why now? Because it sort of reached its tipping point, and it's interesting that these things happen when there's a need in education for a movement and a framework and a philosophy that is helpful. So, for one, why and some of this is personal, but growth mindset changes students, how students see themselves. And for me, my background is in rhetoric and communication, and how we describe ourselves, how we describe our students. Words are very powerful. How we label them, how they label themselves, and it can, language sort of gives birth to our thoughts, and it can peg us this way or that. So in math especially, I feel like math teachers have really grasped onto this concept of growth mindset because I think it's a stereotype that a lot of students say, well, I'm just not good at math. It's kind of like you either have it or you don't, which is not true, right? And so it really motivates students to see the potential within themselves. The second is that it's focusing on learning as a process, not a product. So it's helping us focus the learning on the learning process, right? And Leah was mentioning this, learning and growing and being lifelong learners rather than seeing yourself as sort of static and you either have something or you don't. And I think this goes both ways for not only students but teachers seeing themselves this way. And really, as a teacher, embracing the growth mindset for yourself and modeling this for students as well, not just sort of using it as a strategy with students or a philosophy, but you really embodying the philosophy. Also, I found it interesting about growth mindset making learning relevant to students and helping them, answer the question, well, so what? So I came across this great quote of Noah Heller, who is a master teacher in residence for mathematics at Harvard. He said that students feel like math learning is expected of them, it's something they're forced to do and memorize, or a way in which they're asked to conform their thinking or cram for exams. When students say they're not math people, they mean that they don't see math as a useful practice and can help them interpret and navigate the world. And I think, at least at Common Sense, we really aim to have learning be relevant and purposeful and meaningful to students in their lives. So making that connection and growth mindset is part of making that connection. But lastly, sort of leading into the digital technology piece, we really see this framework, particularly for teachers, if we shift our perspective from students to teachers, as a useful framework for teaching and learning in a digital age. So if we sort of go down that route and think about the potential of technology and the sort of digital shift happening in education, I really like this quote by Chris Lehman. He's a principal at the Science Leadership Academy in Philadelphia. It's a STEM school, about technology and the role that that plays. And for me, I see intersections between teaching and technology and growth mindset. It sort of goes together. See, what we're seeing is, let me move forward here. Today's teacher needs these different skills in an age where schools are going through what's being called the digital shift. They need to find great tools for learning, and hopefully they have access, in some form or another to some form of technology. But there are so many great tools out there. There's also so many tools out there that are not great. And so one of the things we do at Common Sense, with Common Sense Graphite, is we rate and review those tools, which I'll show you in a minute. But they also need to foster a classroom that around the 4 C's. You may have heard of this. This is from P21's Framework for 21st Century Learning: critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity. And technology really opens up a world of what you can do with these 4 C's. And then also, lastly, teachers really need to innovate with digital tools to enhance learning. We do not advocate tech for tech's sake. We don't advocate using technology because it's there. We want teachers to really think about how can tools, digital tools, technology, enhance or modify or even transform what's even possible for you as a teacher. So, we're seeing that research is showing that the tech-forward or the tech-savvy, innovative teachers who are using digital tools in these ways are embodying these qualities of growth mindset. They're flexible and they have a willingness to learn. They take risks and they realize that they're going to make mistakes and learn from that. With troubleshooting, for instance, if something goes wrong with technology in the classroom, they don't give up, right? We've all given up at some point, but they keep trying to find a solution. A lot of them further their own professional growth and see themselves as lifelong learners. So we're really seeing this connection between the growth mindset as a framework around teaching in a digital age. And I mean, if you just think about, I'm just going to give you some examples on the possibilities. Like, here are the 4 C's. So for communication example, an example would be
quick.
Yes.
We're only seeing that first slide.
Oh no.
So I think maybe what we do is just like try the screen share over again.
Oh, okay. I will try it again.
Okay.
I don't know. It might be because I'm in presentation mode. So let me try again.
Yeah, I think if we try it in the in that presentation, it's fine.
Okay. Maybe I don't go into presentation mode. I don't know.
Let's try that. Yeah.
Okay. Or I can show this. Why don't I do this?
Yeah, it was on the perfect point. Speaking of technology and
I know. Yeah, plan B. Plan B. So I was showing some of, are you seeing that, Clara?
Now we're seeing that.
Okay,
perfect.
Great. So this is my PDF version, just in case. But I was going through some of these qualities of, teaching in a digital age, and think about the difference of possibilities. Now, this is not to say that non-digital sort of teaching is not valuable at all. It's just to get you to think about the possibilities, like with communication. Today's tools like Google Docs and Edmodo and others allow students to collaborate in real time, helping themselves, helping each other, and you communicating with them to get real-time feedback. The critical thinking piece, formative assessment tools like GoFormative allow you to see in real time students completing a math problem. It allows you to actually see them drawing out the problem or writing their answers so that you can identify areas that students are struggling with in real time and modify your instruction accordingly. I mean, incredible, right? Not able to do that necessarily, although you could look over the shoulder of them writing, but it's just a different possibility. Creativity, we're seeing sort of these whiteboard and screencasting tools like Explain Everything and Doceri to allow students to show their learning to others and teach each other and record themselves going through problems and solving it or getting stuck and how they move forward, and recording that and showing others. So another possibility. And communication tools. So we see Khan Academy. I mean, that's a pretty big name in math instruction. But what it is a different framework for changing how we deliver direct instruction, and then flipping the classroom, for instance, and allowing for more in-class time to collaborate and apply concepts together. So the idea is, where do you see those lines in your teaching for those teachers out there intersecting with your growth mindset in teaching and technology? So, Common Sense Education, we offer a resource called Graphiteorg. It's a free platform that helps teachers discover, share, and integrate these tools for learning. You'll see top picks lists, you'll see ratings and reviews of digital tools, and all of these ratings are by teachers, and they get to share their ratings of the learning potential of these digital tools. We have a section in Graphite specifically for math teachers, and it's great because you see a lot of lesson plans that are tech-rich, the latest and the greatest tools, teacher reviews and how they're using these different tools, again, to enhance learning. And we also have these little discussion and communities. On the screen, you'll see the mentors. So we have these mentors that will guide discussions and even answer your questions and help you if you want to chime in on any of their discussions. And this site is really, it's for everybody. Even if you're a beginning teacher and you don't know where to start, this is where you should come, because it's not just for sort of the people who have a lot of technology, it's for people who are just starting out too. But I wanted to point out the math piece. So you can also find a link to us on the With Math I Can site. So I wanted to show that as well. But one of the things we've been doing this year, and I have to put in this plug, is these fun growth mindset Twitter chats. So we have a couple more coming up. They're sort of around different themes within the growth mindset topic. So we have a couple addressing, one addressing courage and then celebration. And we were lucky enough to have someone from PERTS join us for one of the last ones as well. So that's just a little bit about us and sort of how we see the connection between those areas of growth mindset and the technology piece.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kelly, and thank you for sharing that Twitter chat. For those of you who are tuning in who haven't used Twitter yet for professional development purposes, I really highly recommend it. There are Twitter chats for every subject area, grade level, and even in more particular focus areas like growth mindset. So be sure to tune into their chat. Speaking of, as many teachers are using resources from withmathican.org and other sites to cultivate growth mindset in the classroom, there are still many misconceptions about growth mindset. And I know we touched on this a little bit earlier with Leah. But Dave, what are some of the misconceptions that educators might have, and what should they be careful not to do?
Yeah, that's a really great question. It's something we think a lot about. Well, some of the really big misconceptions, I'll just hit on a few of the really big ones. I think one is that people equate growth mindset just with trying hard, but that really misses a few different really important ideas behind growth mindset. First and most important, it misses the point that effort doesn't just help you succeed at that particular thing. It's the idea that effort helps you grow. Growth mindset isn't just the idea that if you work at something, you'll succeed at that particular thing. You might not succeed at it right away, in fact. Instead, it's the idea that if you struggle and you work through it, you'll improve your abilities, and over time, you'll become more capable and more able to succeed, at those types of tasks and at others. I think a second critical way that it's just about effort idea gets it wrong is that effort often isn't enough. In order to succeed and learn effectively, students need effective study strategies too. Like if you're working really hard and you're just turning your wheels, then a student's going to get frustrated and give up. And so it's really important not just to tell them to work harder. That could really frustrate them and think, well, I'm working so hard, I must be really dumb that I can't get it, even though I'm working so hard. Instead, you really want to help them think about what strategies should they be using. Should they be asking for help? Should they be breaking the problem down? There's a variety of different strategies that might, depending on the topic area, might be appropriate depending on the subject. But I think teachers ideally can help students think about that, understand that that's an important thing to focus on too. And I think looking for help is one really good kind of meta strategy, right? So if you're really stuck with something, going for help could be a really good thing to do. I think those are probably the main ones. I think another one is that people sometimes think about growth mindset as a magic bullet. That just telling students you should have a growth mindset will somehow magically transform them. And that's really not the way it works. It's about developing a growth mindset culture in a class, and that's really a process. It's something that takes trial and error, and it's we find that it's really important and helpful for educators to work with other educators, give each other feedback, share what's worked and what hasn't at their particular school and their kinds of classrooms. So I think it's really important to have a growth mindset about having a growth mindset and instilling it in students, because it really can be challenging, but the payoff is pretty big. So don't have a fixed mindset about instilling a growth mindset. That's the other big misconception.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dave. And I think you touched on so many great points that it's not simply about telling students to work harder, but there are also many study strategies involved. And also, I've been seeing a lot of comments and chatter about growth mindset being critiqued as, the silver bullet. But obviously, it's just one piece of the puzzle, and there are so many other components that come into that, such as, teacher preparation, curriculum, all of these different components that take place in math education. That growth mindset, it's more about cultivating that, culture in your classroom of, that failing to succeed. Kelly and Leah, do you have anything to add to that? And have you been approached with that before?
I would like to just echo everything he said. Speaks to me in my classroom. I've seen kids who put in a tremendous amount of effort and put themselves worse off than they were before. If you spend an hour doing something wrong, you've now learned how to do it wrong, which is not going to help you. So I think it's a really critical piece that as educators, we figure out how to give kids timely feedback so that as they're working hard and making mistakes, they're knowing if they're on the right track. So it's not just the effort that you make, but it's effort that's always leading to better understanding. And one thing that I do in my classroom that I found to be very helpful is for some kids who are very far behind, they would historically do their homework and it would all be wrong and turn it in. And I've modified homework for many of them that if they work with an adult for 10 minutes, 30 minutes, that is instead of their homework, so that the adult can work at their level, giving them that one-on-one feedback. Instead of saying, do this page of problems and turn it in, and then they're all wrong. The feedback piece is critical, and some of my videos detail how I give feedback to my students, but I think that if you just tell kids to work hard, you're leading them astray.
Yeah, I think I would echo what's all been said, and I've been following on Twitter and closely a lot of the rhetoric around growth mindset. Yeah, it's not a magic bullet. There are problems in education with the system, and it's not going to be fixed by growth mindset. But my question is, why have teachers, why do they find this concept so useful? And it's really something you can practice every day and embody every day in your teaching. It's not, something you do here or there. It's really, to the point of Dave, the culture that you're creating in your classroom, and you're modeling it too. So yeah, but why do teachers love it? Because they're seeing results. And obviously Dave showed some of the research, and I know PERTS continues to do that research. So we, yes, not the magic bullet, but there never is a magic bullet. So it's highly useful and across all grade levels and subject areas.
Thank you so much for sharing. And we've had a lot of great research that we've covered today and other helpful resources from Teaching Channel, from Common Sense Media, and from withmathican.org. But in terms of actionable next steps, so Leah, if a teacher were to say, I want to start cultivating a growth mindset in my classroom tomorrow, what are some steps that teacher could take?
I think the two things that I tell my students and I tell myself maybe 3 things. One, first of all, I believe strongly that everyone can learn, and I tell my students that at the beginning of the year, that no matter how far behind in math you are, and it can be up to 6 or 7 years behind that I am teaching students, and I can still watch them learn. I believe you can learn. I believe you can learn math. So you have to start with that belief, and then you have to tell them that they have to be willing to share their mistakes with you. You have to try something that I used to get a lot of I don't know or IDK written on their tests, and that is not a mistake. That is an avoiding of the problem. So you have to be willing to make mistakes and make them public, and I have to help them through that. And then that they have to ask questions, and they have to ask good questions. So I am constantly loving my students when they ask great questions. I often give extra credit for great questions, and I really, not just like, how do you do this, but making connections or saying specifically where they don't understand something. So the idea of making mistakes and asking questions, if you encourage your class to do that with the statement that you believe they can learn, I think that's the first step to changing their mindset. I think it's also important to point out to kids that they can have a fixed mindset in certain things and a growth mindset in others. And I think that that comparison can help them latch on to the idea that actually you can have a growth mindset in everything. It's about finding the right tasks that help you get better. And I share with my students that I used to think that I could never be a runner. I had a very fixed mindset around running. And as I watched videos online and learned how to get better, I can watch myself improving in that aspect, just the same way that I expect them to learn how to get better at math in my class.
Thank you for that helpful example. I wanted to share really quickly with everyone. So some of the resources that we've talked about today can actually all be accessed for free on withmathican.org. So I'm going to share my screen here with you. We can see that. So basically, Amazon Education has partnered with Common Sense Media, PERTS, Teaching Channel, Edutopia, and a few other key partners to bring you with mathican.org. And here you'll see a video that kind of explains growth mindset, really brings awareness to it, and that phrase that we hear so often from students and teachers sometimes too is that, oh, I'm not a math person, I'm not just good at math. So we're really encouraging schools, classes, and families to really take the pledge to implement growth mindset strategies in your community. And so you can see here we've already had this ticker is continually running, 26,000 people that have pledged to grow. But what I love about this site is that it gives some of this background of the research that Dave shared today from PERTS around growth mindset versus fixed mindset, and it includes really helpful videos and examples. So I know Leah gave that example of, training to be a runner. We have really inspirational examples from, J.K. Rowling, Thomas Edison, and Michael Jordan, just really around through practice and perseverance. They really were able to be successful. And so, in addition to that, you can kind of see all of our partners here, including I haven't mentioned yet, Joe Bowler from Stanford, 10 Marks, which is also an Amazon company, Class Dojo, Character Lab, and ASCD.
I'm not seeing what you're seeing. Am I just wrong here?
Let's see. Everyone else see it?
I am seeing it.
I can see it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry.
Oh, thank you. Please let me know. And for those of you who are tuning in, if you're having difficulty seeing it, you can always just go to withmathican.org and access this as well. And then what I love about down here, we have a live Twitter feed of everyone who is tweeting about the, growth mindset in math with the hashtag #WithMathICan. If you tweet that with that hashtag, you'll have the chance to have your tweet featured then here on our site. So not only can you pledge now, but these resources, so clearly not only are we just saying, okay, we're going to implement a growth mindset, how do you do it? And what are some really research-backed resources to do so? So I love that we have it here, in your classroom for teachers in your district, so for your whole school or for your whole district, and then also for parents in your home. So you can see here, you can just kind of click on which category really pertains to you. And here you can find, everything from teacher professional development to actual resources that you can then show to your students. So, one example I really love are these, examples from PERTS that explain growth mindset to, the teaching channel videos that really allow you to get into another classroom and observe an expert teacher that is working with growth mindset. But also we have lesson plans, and then in addition to that, there's a video from Class Dojo that explains, in a kid-friendly way, like what growth mindset is. So really a plethora of resources here that are available at your fingertips. And again, the site is withmathican.org. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen here. Kelly, I know we have another promotion that is running on with Graphite and Common Sense Media. So can you tell us a little bit more about the lesson plans and the withmathican.org contest?
Sure. So I'm not going to share my screen because it's pretty straightforward. If you go to graphite.org, you will see on the home screen our lesson plan challenge, our With Math I Can lesson plan challenge. And this month in February till the end of the month, we're running a challenge where we're asking teachers to write and submit lesson plans on growth mindset. It can be math. It actually could be any topic. We're expanding it out, but we describe what you need to do in the lesson plan, and obviously these we're asking to incorporate at least one digital tool, hopefully in a way that's meeting your learning objectives. And surprisingly enough, you mentioned Joe Bowler is one of the judges for those lesson plans. So she'll be looking at them along with a panel of teachers and a couple other partners. And the fun thing is that we have some great prizes. So the first prize is a new Fire tablet, and you actually get, this is cool, virtual professional development from Joe Bowler and her new book, Mathematical Mindsets, and a bunch of other fun stuff. So we have a lot of prizes, and I encourage you to check that out and submit your lesson, and you never know. It may be selected to win. So graphite.org, you can find all that information on the homepage.
Thank you, Kelly. And I know there's all these, opportunities to win fun prizes for your classroom, but also really to inspire, other teachers that are on social media or looking at these lesson plans to hopefully be able to implement in their classroom too. So really making an impact, across the globe. So it looks like we are running out of time. Thank you again to Kelly, Dave, and Leah for joining us this afternoon. So how can those who are tuning in get in touch with you on social media? Dave, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
They can follow PERTS, which on Twitter at PERTS Lab, just PERTS-LAB. And they can also find PERTS on the web at perts.net. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Dave Paunescu, Paunescu.
I'll go next. So I've been sort of saying graphite.org this whole time, but pretty straightforward. You can find a lot of these resources that Common Sense Education offers for free to you there. And we also have a whole other side of what we do that you can get connected to around digital citizenship. My Twitter handle is at Kelly Mendoza, pretty straightforward. And we also have an at Graphite Twitter handle, which is great. And then another one, I'll just say it, it's at Common Sense EDU. And so we're sharing a lot of great resources there and would love to follow you back. So thank you.
And I encourage people to check out some of my videos on the teaching channel. It's teachingchannel.org, and my Twitter is at Miss Alcala, MSALCALA. And my email is leahalcala@berkeley.net, and I'd love to continue the conversation either on Twitter or through the teaching channel. I'm active in responding to comments there, and email is great. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'd be remiss if I didn't just add that you can also see a lot of the resources that PERTS has made at mindsetkit.org. So that's mindsetkit.org, including some of the wonderful teaching channel videos that we've been talking about.
Great. So thank you again, Dave, Leah, and Kelly. So I'm Clara Galan. You can reach out to me on Twitter. I'm at Miss Clara Galan, so MSCLARAGALAN, or the at Amazon EDU channel. Be sure to continue the conversation on Twitter and Facebook and include the hashtag #WithMathICan so we can all share and learn. You can also include this hashtag and reach out to any of us at any time, and we'll be sure to get in touch. Again, all the resources that were mentioned today, we'll be sure to feature those on Twitter from the at Amazon EDU account, but also on the page of this Google Hangout. So for those of you who are watching on the Google Hangout page, we'll be sure to post this in the comments so you can follow up with them afterwards. We'll also have a recording, which is great about Google Hangouts on there, is they automatically have a recording. Which will live on our With Math I Can YouTube channel, and we will also post the link to this after the webinar is over, so that you can access it at any time. So thank you for tuning in, and have a wonderful week with your students.